Let's get in frame here. What's going on? Let's not make this fall. Hi. Welcome back to my channel. The home of where we post like maybe once a month. Maybe. But we're going to be doing better come the first of the year, I promise. So today I just wanted to come back and kind of do like a little bit of update and also talk to you guys about some student teaching tips. I have been done with student teaching for about a month now. I've graduated. I have a job for January. And before I did this video, I really wanted to take some time to reflect. And I had thought about doing this video, but I really didn't know what I was going to say until a friend of mine who is going to be student teaching in January reached out to me and asked me for some advice. And I was like, okay, well, I've watched a lot of student teaching tips and advice, and I think I have something new to offer. So I have them written down. I went to my phone, to my messages, and wrote down some of the things that I told him, and I have a little bit more to talk to you about here. So, without further ado, let's get started. Thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe if you like videos like this, and if you'd like to be a part of my family, my YouTube family, woo! So, anyway, yeah, let's get started. And I'm going to try not to bounce on my rolly chair, my little ball chair. See. So I went to the University of Southern Miss, and in my program we had to do 8 weeks in a middle school, and then we had to do 8 weeks in a high school. And those first couple of weeks were spent observing our mentor, getting a feel for her procedures and the school's procedures, and just kind of getting comfortable where we were, and to kind of generate some ideas, give us time for planning, because then we had to do a 3-week unit. We had to plan a 3-week unit, do the lesson plans, the whole 9 yards, teach, you know, all that stuff. We had to do that for both the experiences, and then with whatever time was left, we did observation. So we had to observe at least 3 other teachers in the building from any discipline. By the way, I'm secondary English. Don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah. Also, the last few weeks are spent turning the classroom back over to the mentor teacher, kind of giving the students that little transition time. So I know that some programs are for an entire year, some programs aren't even an entire semester. It just kind of depends on what your university does, all that jazz, but I'm almost positive that you're going to be teaching a unit. It might be for the entire semester. I've heard that before. It might only be for 2 weeks. Mine was 3. It varies. So my tip number 1 is to spend those first few weeks not only observing, but also involving yourself in the classroom. Number 1, get to know the students' names. Number 1, most important, get to know your students' names. Get to know them, get to know what activities they're in, get to know, try to kind of find out some of their background and things like that. Just try to build a rapport. Also, you need to involve yourself as much as possible. So like when the teacher is teaching a lesson and then she has the students do an activity, whether that's individual, whether it's group work, anything like that, try to insert yourself in that. You know, when I first started any type of like field experience, I would kind of like walk around aimlessly, like, you know, just kind of walk around the classroom, probably make a lot of the students really uncomfortable. So I would suggest walking around with a purpose. Try to figure out, you know, where they are, to act like a teacher would do. When a teacher walks around and is observing the students in the group work, she's trying to assess their understanding. She's trying to see where they are, trying to make sure that they're on track, all that kind of stuff. So if you see that a group is struggling with a question, try to insert yourself and help them. If you kind of overhear something really interesting that the students say, oh, that's really cool. We should talk about that a little bit more. That's awesome. Good idea. You know, something like that. Walk around and observe with a purpose. I'm so bouncing all over the place on this chair. Not only will this show your mentor that you have initiative, but it's also really going to help you build that rapport with your students. And that is really going to come in handy when you do your 3-week unit. Because I think a lot of times students see a student teacher as someone that they don't actually have to do work for. And they do. They still have to get grades and all that kind of stuff. So you want to establish yourself as someone who they do need to respect and they do need to work for and they do need to participate. Building that rapport, learning the names, inserting yourself, showing initiative, do that. Also, tip number 2, don't be afraid to introduce some new things into your instruction. So whether that be grouping techniques, whether that be attention getters, whether that be review activities, anything like that. my first mentor was extremely awesome about kind of letting go of the reins and letting me do what I wanted. I would always present her with it first. I would always ask her about it. Say, what if we do something like this? And she'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Or, okay, yeah, that sounds good. What if we do it like this? I think this would help this group of students, or I think this would do well with this group of students better. And she would always, like, just about between every class, she would... Hi.
Let's be YouTube stars.
My film's rolling. Okay, yeah. So she was really, really cool about just kind of letting me do what I wanted to do. What I was saying was, between every class, I would say, ooh, I don't think that worked. And she'd be like, okay, I think you could do this to do it a little bit better, and I think it would work for the next class. I mean, she was just really positive about all that, and it was really, really awesome and really refreshing. I really found myself as an actual teacher during that experience. It was really cool. But you also have to understand that some teachers have a little bit of problem, like, letting go of the reins. Sometimes teachers want you to keep a lot of the same procedures that they do, and don't really feel comfortable with you changing a lot of that stuff. And there's really, I mean, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. My first mentor, she just saw me not only as a student teacher, but someone who was coming fresh from the program. And teaching is something that is constantly it's constantly changing. It's constantly, like, new ideas are constantly being thought of, and styles and teaching styles and just things like that. There's just, teaching is just something that changes so much over time. It's almost like language. Language never stays the same, right? So the English language has changed so much over the past decades and years and things like that. So anyway, teaching is like that too. There's always something new that you can do. You can always improve as a teacher. And so my first mentor was so great about respecting that and valuing that for her classroom. So yeah, and it's all about finding that balance between keeping the same procedures that your mentor has, because ultimately she's the one who's going to be with them after you leave. And if this is your second experience, she has been with them before you came. So you always have to keep that in mind, to be respectful of that. But you also, I mean, student teaching is about finding yourself as a teacher and discovering who you are as a teacher. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to try something new. Always ask your mentor first. I will eventually do a more detailed video about my student teaching experiences, but it's not really something that I feel 100% comfortable going into detail about right now, because I'm still fresh out of the program and haven't officially started working yet. So I just kind of want to give it time before I really get into it, because I do think it would be something beneficial for you, but it's just not something that I can do right now. But I will eventually, I promise. But it will kind of give you an overlay of it without being too terribly specific. Maybe. I'm going to try. So you may find yourself with a mentor that really loves to give constructive criticism or negative feedback or anything, things like that. And constructive criticism is wonderful. That's why you're there. If they didn't think that you needed that, they would just throw you into a classroom by yourself. So constructive criticism is always a good thing, and you should always be open to that. That being said, as a student teacher, or I guess I can only really speak for myself here, but I just feel like a lot of times during that experience I felt very, because you're not the teacher, you're not employed at that school, you're kind of an outsider, and you just kind of feel like you're just trying to keep your head above water, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So some positive, feedback and things like that was really nice. But you may find yourself with a mentor that views her job as a critiquer. It takes it a little bit too seriously, if that makes sense. So I would say that, smile and say thank you and retain whatever is valuable to you, and then what is not, kind of let that go in one ear and out the other. Now, that being said, you do want to be self-reflective. You don't want to be combative and just say, oh, all she does is critique me, or all he does is critique me and tell me what all I'm doing wrong. You don't want to go into it like that, but you want to be self-reflective. Is what this person, okay, think about your lesson. How did you do? How did the students respond? You know, you want to pay careful attention to that kind of stuff. Does that match what your mentor is telling you? Or if your mentor is telling you something and you're kind of like, you know, you want to be self-reflective and balance that with the feedback that your mentor is giving you. Like I said, in one ear, out the other, if it's something totally bogus or something that you're kind of like, okay, you're being a bit nitpicky here. So basically, just don't let the negative feedback bring you down or make you feel defeated, because at the end of this whole experience, you will graduate and you will have your own classroom, and you will be able to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And you want to practice your self-reflective skills, your self-reflective skills. Yeah, you want to practice those now, so that, you know, because you won't have a mentor whenever you're in your own classroom. You're by yourself, so you're going to have to be self-reflective. So practice those skills now. Confide in your supervisor. She's there to help you, or just someone at your university, you know. My supervisor was so great. She wasn't like some entity that was at the university that I just submitted assignments to. She was always there with an open ear, a shoulder to cry on. She was great. And I really appreciated having her when situations arised that I didn't know how to handle. So I never had anything that was like a super big issue. So at the beginning of your student teaching experience, they will tell you, you know, your mentor teacher should never leave you alone in the classroom. If at any point that your mentor makes you feel uncomfortable for any reason, you always need to reach out, you know, things like that. But they also, like, some other situations may arise that doesn't necessarily need like super direct attention, but like things need to be addressed. Let me just be a little bit specific here. Okay. It's never okay for your mentor to scold you, call you out in front of the students, like scold you in front of the students, call you out in front of the students, critique you in front of the students, yell at you in front of the students. That's never okay. That's not her job. You are, you know, you are stepping in that classroom as another teacher. So the students need to respect you. And when a mentor teacher does things like that, it really sets a tone for the students, like, oh, this person, like, if the teacher doesn't even respect the student teacher, why should we? And I did have a situation similar to that that I will get into later. But yeah, so I really needed to advocate for myself, and I needed my supervisor to kind of tell me how to handle that situation. And the way that I handled it, the way my supervisor advised me to handle it was, I had this little pack of sticky notes, and right before class, I didn't even let it be up for discussion, but right before, like, the incident happened one day, the next day I came in, and before I taught the lesson, I started class, I leaned over and I said, so I was thinking that if we needed to communicate during class, we could use these sticky notes, and we could just communicate with each other like that. Yeah, so it's never okay for your teacher to ever give you that feedback in front of the students. Bottom line, not okay, especially to yell at you, not okay. You need to just advocate for yourself, and you need to reach out for help if something like that happens. Another thing that is not appropriate for your mentor to do is to make you write their lesson plans. Now, you have your own 3-week lesson plans to do, plus all of the other things that you most likely will have to do outside of that, as far as like other assignments and things like that. I know I had to do an assessment of student growth. I had to do a thematic portfolio. I had to do all kinds of other things that took up a lot of my time. So I did not have time to write anybody else's lesson plans because I was so busy working on my own. So under no circumstance are you responsible for writing any other lesson plans other than the 3 weeks that you are supposed to write them for your university stuff. So if at any point she wants you to do that, you need to tell your supervisor. I told my supervisor, and she was like, no. At that point, you need to be turning the classroom back over to your mentor, and so she helps me out with that in a way that was respectful and, you know, kind of kept the peace, I guess you could say. You need to not do that. Now, that being said, if your mentor asks you to go make copies, just go make the copies. It's not that big of a deal. It you know, it kind of gives you, to me, I always saw it as, okay, I get to, like, you know, go walk out of the room and take a breather for a minute. I never mind doing that. Pass out papers. Write the agenda on the board. put papers together if they're, you know, several different copies and you need to put them together for a little packet thing. Do that. That's fine. Writing lesson plans for your mentor that's for her to teach, not okay. You don't need to do that. And my very last tip is to enjoy yourself. This is, like, while you're in student teaching, you're going to be like, oh my God, am I ever going to see that other side of this? But you will. And after you get done with an experience, you're going to probably miss your students. I know that at first I was really nervous, and I really loved my middle schoolers, and I really hated to leave them. It was really sad. And I even went back and went on a field trip with them after my whole student teaching was done, so I still have a relationship with those students. My high schoolers I was a little bit intimidated by, because I don't know if you can tell, but I look like a high schooler, and walking in the halls, like, I would always get double takes because I wasn't in uniform. They'd be like, oh, I thought you were a high schooler, I thought you were in school. And you know, so that was really difficult for me because most of the students were taller than me because I'm 5'2". So, but I really wound up forming a really, you know, close relationship with these students. So I was really sad to leave them, and I really loved all of those students, and I loved the experience, good or bad. I learned a lot from both the experiences, and you will too. Take everything as a learning experience and try to have as much fun as you can. Try to find who you are as a teacher. Try to get some great ideas, whether that be from what to do or what not to do, and make the best of it, because it's going to fly by. It just seems like this past semester has literally flown by so fast. I don't even know where it went. And in the middle of it, I was like, this is never going to end, but it does, and then you're sad. So, anyway, that's all the tips that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to try to upload more often. I think once I actually get into my classroom, like, I want to do a classroom tour. I want to do a before and after. I want to try to incorporate some kind of vlogs on my channel, so let me know what you guys think about that. If you guys have any ideas, if you have any other questions that you would like for me to address as far as student teaching. Maybe I didn't address something that you had a question about. If I have enough questions, I'll do another video. Who knows? I don't have that many subscribers right now, but you never know. So anyway, also, I have discovered Insta stories. So I didn't really like Snapchat that much, just because I don't know, I kind of like Instagram because I'm trying to be more active on there, and it just seems like a good way to be all in one place. So if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Hello Middle School, and I would love to see you guys there, and I would love to interact with you guys, and you can catch up on things that I do on my Insta stories. So go follow me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!